The Miracle Drug by Angela Haley and Morgan Ritchie.
The year is 1914. The European subcontinent is embroiled in bloody trench warfare. Soldiers on all sides are victims to artillery fire, mustard gas, and new automatic rifles. Their biggest enemy, however, is infection. Of those wounded in battle, few will survive even their minor injuries. Field hospitals populate the front lines, with young doctors and nurses working day and night to stem the stealthy killer. Their main defense is antiseptic, which proves just as lethal to the patients as no treatment at all. One frustrated young doctor called Alexander Fleming is unwilling to accept the inefficacy of current medicine to rescue the wounded in battle. He would later dedicate his life to understanding and fighting infections, going on to pioneer one of the most influential medical discoveries of the 20th century, a discovery which Time magazine claims has altered the course of history.
During World War I, medicine was in high demand because soldiers were dying due to infections that could have been cured with proper antibiotics. Unfortunately, these necessities weren't available until penicillin was discovered and produced. Infections were often treated with leeches, amputation, bloodletting, and other inhumane methods that were usually unsuccessful. In this time, there were 19 to 28 million deaths from war-related diseases. These serious infections, from tuberculosis to pneumonia to a whooping cough, were caused by aggressive bacteria that reproduced with extraordinary speed and led to serious illness and sometimes death. This lack of needed medicine was one of the main tragedies of penicillin because, if isolated sooner, the drug would have been able to save millions.
Sir Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin in 1928 when he was a bacteriologist at St. Mary's Hospital in London. He returned from a vacation and noticed a zone around an invading fungus on an agar plate in which the bacteria did not grow. Fleming was unable to fully isolate the unknown substance, but was able to determine that it had antibacterial effects.
Luckily for him, Sir Alexander Fleming wasn't in this journey alone. An Australian scientist named Howard Florey arrived in Oxford in 1922 on a scholarship to do research. Florey was following Fleming's research on penicillin through his work as an editor of the British Journal of Experimental Pathology. Another chemist named Ernst Chain arrived in England in 1933 because he was a Jew fleeing from Nazi Germany. The two got together to do research and eventually got involved in the testing of penicillin. Once they had ample supplies of the drug, they performed several very successful tests on mice to discover that penicillin was not only a powerful bacteria killer, but also harmless to humans and animals. Sir Alexander Fleming heard of their work, but took no part in it. He returned to St. Mary's to tend to wounded patients from the bombing of London.
The first human trial of penicillin took place on February 12, 1941. Albert Alexander, an Oxford policeman, acquired a nasty infection caused by a scratch from a rose bush. With the use of penicillin, his condition improved almost like magic, but their supply ran out. Thus, the unlucky policeman died. This is another one of the tragedies of the early use of penicillin because of the lack of resources needed to have enough. After this attempt, the Oxford team tried penicillin on 5 other desperately ill patients. Only 4 survived. Ann Miller was the first human to be successfully treated with penicillin in March of 1942. The future seemed bright for the drug, but it could only be produced in quantities large enough for laboratory tests or treating individual patients, not whole armies.
Since the U.S. was still rich and in peace during this time, individuals from the Oxford team traveled to Peoria, Illinois in July of 1941. They asked locals to bring them moldy food to see if they could find a better strain of penicillin, which they did. Thanks to a moldy melon from the market, the new Peoria team was able to produce penicillin 8 times stronger than the Oxford group. By September of 1942, penicillin had been used to treat 187 different conditions in the form of ointments, injections, and sometimes oral medicine. Soon after, a penicillin committee was established to urge British drug companies to mass produce the wonder drug. Since then, thousands have been saved from haunting casualties, such as soldiers from D-Day and people trampled due to a fire at a nightclub in Boston.
By 1945, the U.S. was producing enough penicillin to provide 34 million doses a day. Mass production of antibiotics, especially ones such as penicillin, was a revolutionary accomplishment made by the U.S. This was considered one of the greatest advances in therapeutic medicine. American resources allowed for the wonder drug to be a widely accessible lifesaver, which is a big triumph for the entire world.
The original discovery of penicillin has also been among the best-known events in the history of medicine because the single drug has been developed in ingenious ways to increase productivity, reduce cost, widen its range of activity, and deepen its effectiveness against bacteria. This makes it a continuous addition to medicine that is always adapting to new technologies. Alexander Fleming founded the Fleming Scholar Program in 1956 to give high school students in Oklahoma biomedical experience. He donated the first building of the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation. This interview shows Sir Alexander Fleming describing the effects of the program for the future of science.
But medical research has freed us from a lot of scourges, plague, cholera, smallpox, many others. And if it's given free hand and more facilities, it may one day deal with cancer, polio, and the other things of which we are very much afraid. See, it's made childbirth safe, and it's enormously diminished infantile mortality. The child's got a better chance of growing up if he's born. Now, the work done in the Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation directly leads to a longer life and less suffering. This special program, I think, is heart disease and cancer and arthritis. But when they're working at that, there'll be some other things bob up, same as penicillin bobbed up when I was doing something else. Indirect value is the increase in the morale of the people of Oklahoma. It's a state rich in many material ways. The successful Medical Research Foundation helps to give a moral uplift, especially to those people who contribute materially to it. If you've contributed, then you naturally have something of a fatherly interest.
The legacy of penicillin will continue to grow forever. For Sir Alexander Fleming, he will be remembered for this momentous discovery as well as others in his lifetime. He was awarded with the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1945. Penicillin, although challenges were faced, is one of the most life-changing antibiotics in history. The discovery of penicillin faced many setbacks with production because of war efforts, but found a way to be resilient by discovering new methods to develop it and treat sick people. The discovery and development of penicillin has influenced the advancement of medical history forever by starting with the testing of penicillin on mice to curing millions of people worldwide.